I was born in Kiełków, village of Kiełków, in the southern part of Poland, 1944, on June 11. I attended the local school, grammar school, and then high school in the district city of Mielec. So that's 7 years and another 4 years. And after that, I was admitted. I passed the examination, was admitted to medical school in Krakow, which I finished in 1968. And I continued with internship in the city of Mielec for 1 year and immigrated to the United States in 1970. June 11, 1944, the war was still going on, but it was towards the end. So I was obviously too young to remember anything from these times. But then I was asking questions, my parents and my neighbors and whoever I could at that time, and they were graciously telling me how it was during the war and afterwards. And so I was born in a village. There was no doctor, there was no hospital. It was just somehow locally educated housewife who helped to deliver me. And fortunately everything went well. And now my mother told me that after I was born, about 2 weeks later, they had to run away because of the war was still going on there, and hide in the forest. And so they did not have any bed for me or anything. They found like what's called niecki. Niecki is like a container for grain. So that was my bed for the time being. And she also told me that they escaped to the forest and they returned sometime a couple of weeks later back to the village. One of them was my uncle. His name is Edward Kroll, and he was a teenager. So he was, I think, maybe 17, 18 years old at the time, and he was sort of unregistered soldier fighting Germans with the underground, Polish underground, which was active in the forests. So, as I mentioned before, the Germans were careful about going to the forest because they were afraid of these groups. They didn't know how many there are, and where are they exactly stationed. So when there was a time for my parents to run away, hide in the forest, that's where they went, because they felt safe, or safer than then in a village, stay in a village when there were fights. But so that's he was collaborating with the underground members of the group, and somehow Germans got hold of it. Just found out that he was one of the members, so they were trying to catch him, and presumably would shot him on the spot. So that particular day, he happened to be at the crossing of the river from Kirkuk to Johu, which is in the next village, and we would frequently go there because there were churches there. There was shops there to buy things. There was a bit more advanced culture than in Kirkuk, so a lot of people were crossing back and forth at a crossing point, which the way it looked, there was a larger boat manned by a gentleman who knew how to operate the equipment, and you would pay him like a small amount of money, and he would take you to the other side, and vice versa. You were coming back, and it was the same thing. So somehow my uncle turned out to be, I don't know what for, but it was not unusual, for him to do so, and he spotted the soldiers, or the soldiers asked somebody where is a good place to take a bath, or he heard, I don't know exactly which was how he got the information, but anyway, when he did, then he came to the spot where they chose to take a bath, refresh themselves, and put the weapons on the shore and uniforms on the shore, and went to the river to enjoy themselves. River name is Wisłoka. So he came up. He sort of sneaked in behind the trees and bushes, and found out where they were, and came to the uniforms and weapons, and took the rifle and pointed at them and say, "Well, I'm going to kill you now." Say prayers or whatever he said, and they were begging him not to do that. So he said, "Okay." He was sort of like he was sorry that he didn't want to actually kill them. He wasn't going to kill them anyway, but he said, "Okay, you've got to stay here for 2 hours in the river and don't move." And he took the uniforms and threw the river down the current. So they lost the uniforms, and took the weapons and ammunition, which 4 rifles and ammunition he took himself, and came home. It's stupid, It's not very smart. So he came home, sent some message to friends of his. There were 2 or 3 friends he had with the same groups who were fighting the Germans, or trying to, young boys, obviously, that he has German weapons, and they're going to be having, they're going to be armed now better. And so he took the weapons and put it on the table in our house. He'll take vodka from from the storage, and they all sitting there. I think it was four of them, or three or four of the guys, and drinking for the victory, and getting happy because they got weapons now, so they're going to be much more effective. And meantime, so they're enjoying themselves. And meantime, Germans obviously got out of the water and somehow, got uniforms or whatever, got back to the unit, and went looking for him. So they knew his name. Okay, they knew his name. So I don't think they knew who did it, that he's the one, but who did it. But anyway, so he was at the crosshair from them already. So they knew his name, and they wanted to capture him by all means. So they came. German came with the truck, the army truck, it's like heavy truck and it's machine gun, whatever. And they were looking or asking people where my uncle lives. So where is our house? Okay. And they came close to our house and asked the neighbor. Neighbor was the older woman, and she was like maybe 50 meters or so from our house. Her house was next. And so they asked her where Kroll lives. Where is the house? And it was close to our house already. But she sort of like pretended to be not hear well, So she was shouting, where Kroll lives, and they were trying to shout to him also because they thought she was deaf or something like that. So, but the woman was so loud because she wanted us or them to hear what's going on, so not to be surprised. But the whole thing was closed already. So they came up. They came up to our house, and so Uncle and his friends had maybe, I don't know how much time to escape, but they somehow did. Not everybody, but my uncle jumped through the window, jumped up outside and over the fence and into the fields, and in the fields on the ground escape, and they did not see him, and luckily he was able to get to there was about like maybe 100 meters away, there was a ditch, like ditch for the water to collect from the fields. So he got into the ditch, and that ditch was long, probably about 2 kilometers, going to the next village into the forest. And he was able to escape. My mother told me that she The other friend, the other two, I think, were captured in a house with the guns. My mother took pistol, but they also had a pistol, and she threw it away through the window in the fields. And she said that the Germans went looking for it, saw it when something flying out. So they were looking for it, and they found the pistol. Okay, so but before actually this all action happened, when they came to the house, from the house from my to the road was about maybe 20 meters. It was very close, small garden, road, and the house. And without asking any, the first thing they did is they shot at the house with a gun. So I'm not sure how many times they shot. Whether it was a machine gun or whatever it might have been anyway. So that's what my mother tells me, that they shot the house, and they shot at the picture. They had like a large icon of Jesus Christ on the wall, and Mother Mary next to it. So there was a heavy glass protecting the painting. And when they shot the bullets, then they shot that big frame, and they shot the glass that fell apart. And I was sleeping. I was a baby, so I was sleeping right under that, in the bedroom, right under that picture. And all the glass fell on me. But I did not even wake up. Nothing happened to me. No scratch. It was a heavy shreds of the glass coming down. That maybe probably like a quarter of an inch thick. Because and that picture is still there in my house, hanging on the wall as a remembrance. So there was sort of a miracle that nothing really happened to me, and nobody was hurt. So my mother took me on her hands, and I cleaned up the glass, took me on her hands, and she walked out of the house, and raised her hand with the baby, and raised her hand up, and she was walking through the Germans. It was, sizable unit of the German soldiers with guns and everything else. So she was able, somehow, miraculously, go through. They did not harm her. They usually would kill the whole family in such a case. So they did not harm her, and that's another miracle that nobody can explain. So my father was not home at the time, and my grandma, because they were working in the fields about a kilometer away from the house. We had a small piece of land there. So she when she come out of the house. So she walked on the road towards us, where we were, and she was desperately trying to warn the grandma and my father to run away in the forest. So she came like maybe 200 meters away from them, and she was showing this, run away, run away, run away. And they saw her and ran away to the next village. Okay, so that was another miracle. So, another miracle was that they let her go through without harming anybody. So they pick up the guns, which belonged to the German soldiers. They got the two guys from the house, my friends of my uncle. They took them to the police station, and eventually they let them go. So that was totally, you cannot understand this because the usual treatment of the villages in such case was they killed everybody, they killed the family, they killed kids, they burned the house. That's what it was. But somehow on this particular occasion everybody lived, and my uncle eventually, because this was toward the end of the war. I'm saying that was the end of the war. I was born June 11, and 1944. So the Russians were already in the next village, on one side of the river, and the Germans were on this side of the river. So they were sort of like everything was going through. And sometimes there were fights, sometimes it was quiet, it was not really, you could not predict what's going to happen next from day to day. But on this particular occasion, everybody was in one piece. So my father was inducted into the Polish unit under Russian command. So the way it was structured is that like Polish unit, or probably any other unit which is not other than Russian, they would be ordered to attack the enemy first. Okay, so in that particular case, it would be they station on the river is dividing Germans and the Russians, right? So if they plan the attack, the Russians planned the attack on the German, they would send the units, Polish units first to the fire. So exactly the date I don't know, but one night my father decided to, because that was close, he was stationed in the next village, next town, but my family was at home right across the river. So he decided, like late evening, to leave the unit, and come back through the river and come back home to see his family. And he was going to go back in the morning to his unit before the morning alarm. So that's what happened. He left late, I don't know what time, but he went to my home to see his family. And meantime, 4 o'clock in the morning, the Russians ordered the attack on Germans. So Polish unit went first, and obviously, everybody from his unit was killed because the Germans were at, machine guns on the other side. You had to go through the river. I mean, it's stupid. How can you win anything? You don't do that. You should not just waste people. So my father's unit was pretty much eliminated totally. Everybody was killed, and he didn't go back because he learned about this, so he didn't go back. And it was noted by the Russian authorities that he did not return. He was not there when the attack was ordered. So after the war, he was considered deserter. So fortunately, the amnesty came, and he was pardoned for that. So he was lucky not to be hanged. So that's another story. So it's nothing but, nothing like. It's like it's sort of like you think about it, and how could this happen? It's a destiny, or who is commanding all of this? Why is particular person? Why is you or him that he was lucky to escape, and everybody was killed? So it's like it makes you think about God, very, very seriously, because the things are usually do not happen like that. Something, German comes and they're going to kill everybody, and that's the way it is. So that's the truth. In the village, there were some Jewish families, and they're not rich people, are just average people. And so our family knew people, Jewish people, husband and wife, and son, I don't know how old he was, but he must have been maybe 10 years old or something like that. And I remember till today that the house where they lived, because when I was already, it's after the war, and I remember from, let's say, 5 years old or whatever, so I was going through the village back and forth. There was this house, small house with the straw roof, and so at that time when I have seen that house or saw that house, or there was somebody else, his Polish family lived there. but my parents told me that there was a Jewish house, and there was a husband and wife and a son named Leba. Leba was about 10 years old. And one day, there was a Sabbath. I think Jewish people go to church on Saturday, right? I think that's the way it is. So that was in Mielec. There was a big synagogue there for the whole district, and that's where all the Jews were gathering there for the Sabbath. So, and the Jewish people came to Sabbath. The great numbers was full. Church was full. Outside, people waiting, also praying. And the Germans came out with the machine guns, with the flamethrowers, and just mowed everybody who was there. So I think, as I remember correctly, 242 people died on that day. Okay? The people I was talking about in the straw house, the small house, Jewish people, I think they were able to escape that massacre and came home, and they were arrested soon after. The wife hid somewhere, and Germans didn't find her. Germans didn't. They were looking, I think, for her, but I don't know whether she went. And also, son, the Leba, he was not arrested by Germans, so they hid together successfully. So they arrested the husband and took him to a camp about maybe, 15 kilometers away, to the city which is called Połaniec. And they had like a concentration area, a camp, maybe not camp, or probably temporary storage of the people. And so they took him there, and the wife was walking. When people told her that the German took him to Połaniec. So she was walking, and she got to that place, and there was obviously a big fence, and she could not get in. So she was sort of like trying to climb the fence, and they killed her with a machine gun. So that was unfortunate. The husband, I think, was died in the concentration camp, or maybe even there. We don't know. Nobody knows. The son was just now by himself in a house in a village, and there was orphan, and he was trying to hide and beg people to help him, and the punishment for hiding Jewish family or kid or anybody Jewish was death to whoever was doing it. So So my grandma felt sorry for the kid and took him home, and put him in the cellar. There was a cellar, and the cellar is still there in my old house, behind like potatoes. So he was like hiding behind that. So in a case of Germans would probably miss him. It's hard to be sure because. So he was with her maybe 3 months. Maybe I don't know, maybe more than that. And one day, Grandma said that she was in the fields, and somebody told her that Germans, somebody, reported that she hides the kid, Jewish kid, in her home. So she ran from the fields, and she got home, and the Germans were not there yet, and says to the kid, listen, you have to run away because the Germans are coming and they're going to kill us all. And the kid was obviously shocked and he didn't know what to do. And but she was able to send him to a friend of hers who lived like maybe kilometer away, and he was with them, with a new host for some time. And so the way it was is that the penalty for hiding the Jewish kid or Jewish member, whatever, it was death. And it was like people were sorry for the in a situation like this, that the kid is like, what is a kid guilty of? You got to help him. And but the punishment was unfortunately, they would kill you. You burn your house, especially in the village. Sometimes later, that that poor labor, there was another because they were like looking for the Jewish people or kids or whatever it was everywhere, and somehow they the new host found out about it and said, listen, Leiba, you have to get out of here because the Germans are coming. So Leiba left and went into the bushes next to the river Wisłoka, the bushes, and hid in the bushes over there. And the Germans were going through with dogs and everything, So they found him, and he got scared. He was hiding in one of these bushes, he got scared, and he jumped into the river. I was trying to cross the river to the other side, and the soldier shot him, in the water. So he just simply, got killed, and the river took him down down the current, it's horrible. My uncle Edward. So he was rather brave, and it's just doing crazy things. And the Germans were organizing periodic, they call it wapanki. See, so they would come to the town or village or whatever to gather as many people as you have soldiers with the guns, whatever, surrounding the group of people, and Hände hoch, hands up, and march them all to the truck, lock them up, and send them to the concentration camp or to Germany, whatever they needed. If they needed sometimes to work in Germany, they would do the same thing. So, because they would take prisoners, and then they would do whatever they seemed appropriate for them, either kill them right away, or send them somewhere, or the request from the Germany comes whether they need workers in the fields, so that the lucky ones will be sent there to work on the fields. All the others may not be the lucky, just get killed right away. Generally, when the Germans were sorting out who's useful and who is not, would separate the men from the wife, and wives from the kids, and it depends what they thought about the status of health or usefulness of this particular person. So men would be sent to work. A woman, if they don't need them, they just kill them. And children, same thing. They would separate children from the mothers and usually kill them both. So to continue with the story by uncle, the Germans caught a bunch of people and were marching them to the truck. And my uncle Edward noticed that one of them was our cousin, young girl, maybe the same thing, 17, 18 years old. She was in that group. So my uncle, despite of that fact that they were being marched by the soldiers with guns, so they could kill you anytime. So he's sort of like even stepped with the group, walking right next to them, and approach our cousin, and like in a fraction of a second, grab her arm, and grab her like under the arm, pretending that she's girlfriend or wife, And we yank her out of the group, and he kept walking. It's like nothing happens. Nothing happened. And miraculously, the Germans either didn't see it, or whatever happened is just unbelievable. So he was able to save her, because she would be probably dead. She was saved, and this was there was a rather distant family, but he was, I don't know, second or third cousin or whatever. But Uncle Edward, that's the type of the man he was, that he would risk a lot. But in this time he was lucky because usually they would kill them both. But he was lucky to save her from a concentration camp. So it's an event like this, like every day. So obviously, I was born at the end of the World War II, and actually, um, 19 mid of 1944, the war was still going on, but the Germans were in the retreat. So um, it was not until 45, spring 45, where the war was ended. So, and obviously I was not aware of anything because I was a little kid. So 2 years old, 3 years old, what's going on around you, you really don't understand or you don't perceive. And it's dangerous. So I remember living in the village, being a happy kid, playing with my cats and dogs and other animals. And it was like, like a farm, like chickens are your friends, you never know. Obviously, cows are your friends, and pigs seem to understand what you're talking about. so, so I was quite happy actually in the village, and basically it's a very simple life, not complicated, and I was enjoying it. As I remember, I was just a happy kid. And so I remember a little bit more when I went to school. So I still remember vividly the first day of school. I didn't want to go, and mother has to convince me and give me some candies. I don't know what she gave me. So I went the first day, and suddenly I liked the school, and I didn't have to be pushed or forced to attend it. So it was I lived in a village, so you know you kind of like oblivious to what's going on anywhere else. I mean, what a kid can understand, he doesn't understand anything. He just understands if he gets rewarded, or you get a candy for something, or people are bad, or people are shouting at you, or mother comes and smack you in the butt because you did something wrong. It's like simple everyday life. But you don't really understand till years later, because I tell you, in the case of Poland, transition from one system to another was pretty abrupt, and there was no discussion. You know, in a school, the schools were state-run. Everything was, um, you know. But I remember that they permitted. I had lessons of religion in school, despite of the fact that the Russians were communists and they were basically uh, wanted to eliminate the religion from the life of Poland. um, there was no way to probably fight it for them because there would be another war. And so they probably that there was a deterrent from them just to be like jerks 100% and torture the society, excuse me, the mankind, not only from Poland but anywhere. It was just inconceivable to me from a distance of time that they would engage in any serious, conflict. Like eliminating religion is not possible from Poland. 95% are Catholics, so you can't. But if you try to change this, you're going to have a revolution. So no matter how big the country is, that would be a lot of blood would be shed if they try to do that. So as a kid growing up, going to school, you really do not have a conscious understanding about new system, because you traditionally your job as the kid is to listen to your parents and listen to your priest and listen to your teacher, and that is it's not like here as though in American school you have no authority. The teacher does not have authority. Over there, the teacher is a huge authority over the kids, and the parents as well. And but and as in the school, when you grow up, at the beginning there was a religion in the school, officially permitted. So that was eliminated when I was in high school. So that eventually they stopped teaching kids religion in the schools when I was already in high school. Otherwise, in the grammar school, the priest would come and teach like every other, teacher. It was a grade on the on the final exam you had, and it was because the religion over there is really very integral part of the life. They take it seriously. So, and education was actually a quite important for the government as well. And I do remember when I was in the grammar school yet, and they were sort of like planning that everybody will be able to write and read, in the next 5 years or so. They want to eliminate the analphabetism, so everybody can communicate. So this was, I think, a good movement from whatever government was, that they wanted to do good for the people. But for you as a person, a young person, you really don't understand what totalitarian government is, and how is it bad for you or your parents or whatever. Because as you go through the education system at that time, the emphasis was actually put on the learning of the science, the facts, and or mathematics or language, whatever. And it was no diversion in a way that, okay, this is ideology is more important than anything else. There was no such things, And as you were getting older, and especially when you finished school and wanted to get into went to get a job, get the employment, whatever, it became obvious that there are some factors which you cannot control, and you may be very smart, and you may know more than the other people, but that's not the basis to give you like director position or whatever, because these were reserved by people from the same party, the people with the established spine, friendly with the system, and so I'm talking about my own experience, because somebody who was older and got into the system like at the age of 35, whatever, so he would experience the brunt of the change. Okay, because work or position in the society, that's what counts. Kid goes to school. Screw the kid. Who cares about a kid? We can first we have to just eliminate the opposition of the guys who may oppose, or they don't like the system or whatever. So you gotta take care of them first. So politically speaking, after the Second World War, the Polish government escaped first to Romania, and potom established offices in London. So that was a government which was in force when Germans invaded, and they had to run away. The war was lost in 3 weeks or whatever. They overran the country entirely. So there was no way you can do anything about this. So as the new government came, in a school, new faces appear on the wall. There was Stalin, there was Bierut, which is president of Poland at the time, well, I remember the first, and Rokossowski, which was Marshal of the armed forces. So these three were portraits were in every school or every institution, government institution or offices, and then if you were expecting to, if you wanted to be somebody, like you aspire to be this of that, you have to consider whether government likes you to do this or not. You know, if you somehow in your past prove that you are not really, you cannot be trusted, the new government, then you're not going to get anything. Okay? If for whatever the reason, the government will decide that you you are sort of like, you're suspicious, in other words. You're not that person. You know, you're too independent. You would end up in the black book, and you would not get a job anywhere. It's like almost like a computer, you know. You the black book, which probably all these munchkins from the upper echelon have access to, and you're wondering what the hell you're doing wrong. It doesn't matter. There's a mark on your name. That's it. You're done. So, coming back to the end of the war, and the Polish soldiers who fought all over the world, returning to their country on the presumption that they're going to be heroes. You know, because that's exactly what they are. They were heroes. Poland was the only one who stood up to Hitler and started to fight. Everybody gave in. You know, Czechoslovakia, nothing busted, nothing broken. You know, France, Maginot Line, who cares? Doesn't work. And so all these countries are pretty much, you know, annexed to Third Reich, and that's it. England, obviously, there is a water barrier between two countries, so a little bit more difficult. And fortunately, England had a powerful support from America, so eventually this was turned in our favor. But otherwise, you know, it would be interesting what would happen if that was not the case, if America did not join the World War II. Of course, yeah. Well, that family was conservative, so and most of the families were conservative. So you know, family is telling you something else, and the government is telling you something else. But you know, as a kid, I trust my family. I don't trust the government. You know, it's but particularly that you have incidences like somebody disappearing. You know, your neighbor, whatever. No, nobody knows why and where you are. You know, and so I had at least one incident like this from my close family friends, where the gentleman, which I knew quite well, and his wife was a caterer, weddings and whatever. I knew her very well, and they were good friends of my grandma. So my grandma was actually working with the other lady, and like serving as a caterer. And so I think I mentioned to you before that this gentleman had a tendency to say something, not exactly derogatory, but something which you may interpret, well, okay, well, Uncle Stalin would not approve. So the poor guy disappeared one day, and without a trace, and appeared like, came back out of nowhere about 2 years later. And obviously his attitude is changed totally, and now he's praising the government. You know, Uncle Stalin is the best. So it was obvious that he was taken and brainwashed. But it was, from perspective of time, you know, I really don't know how to, sometimes what to think about it, because the Poland was not free, and Polish people don't like not to be free. You know, you especially when the eternal enemy, Russia, we know we cannot trust them, no matter what. So you cannot fix it. You cannot fix it, and you have a chance. You have proved now. Out of a sudden, you know, he's in Ukraine, busting towns and killing people. So where is that from? So how it's going to end, nobody knows, you know, because it's absurd to conduct the war nowadays in such a climate where there's so many things to do to maintain status quo, at least, and then to start a new war. I mean, didn't we learn enough that it doesn't work? It's just atrocity after atrocity. That, you know, people are dying, and what for? For what? No question. No, you cannot answer this. Yeah, so I remember I was a little kid, so I was, let me see, 9 years old, right? He died March 5th, 1953. I remember. So the flags were lowered in the school, because, you know, nobody had a flags at home like people do today. But the flag was flown like half the mast, number one, and also the black flag was put out as a proof of sorrow or sympathy, whatever, for Stalin's death on the roof of the school. Yeah. So this was like, obviously this was required etiquette, because people don't give a shit about Stalin, and they're happy that he's dead. So that's what it was. Small episodes like what was life like. So there was this one about disappearance of that guy. But sometimes somebody would disappear and never come back again, you see. So that was, I'm talking about from either heard somebody did that or happened, or like this fellow who came back, so everybody was happy that he came back. But he's he did not commit the crime yet, because if he did commit a crime, he would end up in Siberia, which was after the Second World War. A lot of people were sent there, you know. As a matter of fact, the Armia Krajowa, AK, so that was the original army which was defending Poland, you know, but they were not connected with the Russians. Yeah, I think they were at the beginning. They came out as they were forming Russia, but then they gathered momentum and gathered all the new recruits from all over the world, and became Armia Krajowa. So after the war, the soldiers from the Armia Krajowa who survived, they were justly so expected that they're going to be praised for their effort, and that they are heroes. And nothing, you know, is nothing close to the truth here. It's just the opposite, you know. They find out that by coming back to Poland, actually they get imprisoned and then unjustly convicted of the treason or other atrocities, or on mock trials, and a lot of people died. A lot of people died because they were hunted. They were hunted like you know, like wild animals, and because they either did not want to commit with the new system, or whatever the reason, they could not. When you are in the in school, so you say you're being taught the Russians are friends, you know, that they saved our country, and you have the statue of Russian heroes fighting on the Polish soil, you know. So this is things like that, and so you really don't know who to believe, but you know, as the truth comes out, then a lot of people just say, well, we didn't know. And I remember there was a time in Poland after the war where it was not really it was not a good idea to remember old times like from the war. And I don't know why exactly, but I think it's something to do with the Catherine as well, that they would deny, the Russians would deny that it was their fault, that they did it, and they didn't want society to, like, you know, blab about it and make it public. Eventually this came out, and it's been straightened out, but still, you know. So to put it simply, like żołnierze wyklęci, you know, these people were hunted by the new government, and all the soldiers from the Armia Krajowa, so whoever came was either, in prison, or if they were sentenced to death. For what reason, nobody knows. So people were coming, expecting to live in peace, and nevertheless there was another hell. Yeah, but you see, 1956, there was small uprisings actually. 1956, where the big confrontation was by Hungary. So in Poznan, I don't know how many people died, but not many. And it was simply diffused and.
Do you remember learning about it?
No.
Did people talk about it?
People knew about it, but it was not. You could not see it anywhere. There was not in the newspapers, and I don't think we have radio. Maybe we did, I remember. So it was not obvious, what's going on. But the big revolution was at in Hungary at that time. They took the brunt of Russian invasion, and they sort of later they became independent. It's amazing that this could happen. Oh yes, I do remember. So that was later. That was the second time. 68, 67, 68. So I was actually on my last year of medical school. So in Krakow there was a big demonstration of the students for free speech, the free government, honest voting, things like that, the basic right of the citizens. But it was interesting, I went to one of these massive gathering of student body on the open field in Krakow. And remember there was a talk by one of the professors, it was not from medical school, I think it was from language studies, who begged everybody to listen. He says, please go home, please do not make any provocations, whatever, because there are hundreds of tanks stationed around the capital or wherever, and they will not ask any questions. They will just crush you. So I don't know how it happened because I went home after that. So I think, as I remember, next day there was no confrontation. So that was 68. No, I saw military exercises in Poland, yes. Yes,
Can you
but
describe those?
no, this was like, but it's not related to that incident, because not necessarily, because 1968, that was actually could be a war between Poland and Russia if Russia decided to invade it. But I think they were afraid of full war, and eventually they gave up. So, but military exercises were common, relatively common, after the war, because it was like, there's a new army, so they have to practice. So they would just tanks, especially tanks. So tanks were like everywhere, and sometimes they did not respect the private property or whatever. They just would go anywhere with the tank and messed up your fields. But I have seen countless and countless planes flying from Russia to south, to Prague, supposedly. I don't know. Prague, Brno, this, because this was like almost like invasion, I think that it would be. No, it was in my brain encoded that it is impossible for the socialism to fall, or communism to end. So. Well, I was lucky that my father had some money, because he was already established veterinarian. So my father gave me $500, because that's what the government requested. $500 to pay for my education. So obviously, by today's standards, is nothing. But $500 in Poland at that time, so that was you have to work for it a couple of years. Because I was getting the basic salary was like $12 when I finished medical school a month. So that was a lot of money. So I had to pay that, and fortunately I was not involved in any of the organizations, or I did not join any associations which they suspected maybe conservative or subversive or whatever. So that helped, and it was at that time that America was actually giving visas quite easily, but there was problem getting exits from Poland, So I eventually got it, but it was several times trying. So thanks God.